Okay, good morning to all. Thanks for joining today's demo. My name is Ravi Kumar, and about my experience, I have 13 years of experience in IT industry. I do consulting, implementation, and administration of Microsoft and VMware product. In cloud services, I take care of Azure Active Directory administration, Azure administration and migration to Azure, Office 365 implementation, and migrating to Office 365 services. In on-premises, I take care of in virtualization on VMware and Hyper-V, and also I take care of Windows administration, anything running on top of Windows like AD, WSUS, I take care. And also as part of messaging, I take care of Exchange services. So this is brief introduction about myself and about today's training, wherein we'll be covering this AZ104, and today we'll be seeing the demo for that. Okay. So this is a 30 hours or 30 plus hours content where we will be covering 90% of practical oriented. Okay. So we discuss theory part and we discuss we will see how to deploy the services practically. And also there are certain real-time labs wherein or lab or real-time scenarios we will be covering it up. Okay. Yeah. So let's see what all the content wherein we'll be covering. So we'll be covering AZ104 content, okay, which is Microsoft Azure Administration. There are 15 modules wherein we'll be covering in this entire training. So one is overview of cloud and benefits of cloud, types of cloud computing, types of cloud services, and what is Azure, and what are the ways we will manage Microsoft Azure. We will be seeing in the module 1. In module 2, we'll be covering about the subscription. So what are the types of subscription? How do you create the subscription? How do you manage the subscription? And what are Azure resources? How do you deploy the resources? We will be seeing in the module 2. In module 3, we'll be covering about the compute workload. What is virtual machine in Azure? How do you deploy the virtual machine or the compute services in Azure? We'll be seeing in module 3. And also we'll be understanding what is the ARM template. So the overview of ARM template we'll be seeing in the module 3. So in module 4 we'll be looking into the calculator. So whenever you get any new requirement, so how do you deal with that, right? So how do you get the estimation or estimated cost using the Azure calculator? We'll be seeing in the module 4. In module 5 we'll be covering on the storage part, right? So how do you keep data in the Azure storage, and what are the ways we will manage the Azure storage we'll be seeing in the module 5. And module 6 will be covering about the networking part. So what is Azure network, and how do you create the virtual network in Azure when you have more than one virtual network? So how do you connect them? We'll be seeing. So there's some echo. All right, thank you. Okay, if at all, if you have any doubt, any questions, and if I'm going fast, please stop and ask me. Okay, so how do you connect the virtual networks when you have more than one network in your environment? And how do you extend the connectivity from your on-prem to Azure using the VPN service? And also, how do you connect your individual device directly to Azure network to manage your infrastructure using point-to-site VPN? And also, we'll be seeing like how do you host your application in a high availability way using the Azure load balancing solution? Okay, so this will be learning at module 6. In Module 7, we'll be covering like what is network security group and how do you control the traffic flow within your Azure using the network security group. We'll be seeing in the Module 7. In Module 8, we'll be covering the general administration task, right? So what all the day-to-day activity you will be working with respect to the Microsoft Azure. We'll be seeing in the Module 8, like working with the virtual machine disk, virtual machine network card, and the snapshot part, like how do you take a snapshot, what are the ways we restore it, and how do you create your custom images, right? So this will be covering in the Module 8. In Module 9, we'll be covering the high availability services. So when you want to host your VMs, so what are the high availability option you have, and what is availability set, availability zone will be covering in the Module 9. And also we'll be covering the automation of your virtual machine horizontal scaling using the Azure scale set. And in Module 10, we'll be covering the PaaS service, which is the app service. So how do you host your web application as a platform as a service? Will be seeing means two platform as a service will be seeing here. One is app service and the other one is a SQL database. How do you create and how do you connect and how do you manage it? Also, we'll be covering on the Azure Active Directory as part of identity and access management or governance. We'll be understanding what is Azure AD, how do you integrate your on-prem AD with Azure Active Directory, and what is Azure AD Premium Services, how do you deal with that, how do you manage custom domain in Azure AD, how do you manage multi-factor authentication in Azure AD, and how do you integrate your on-prem AD to Azure AD using AD Connect, how do you synchronize, we'll be seeing in the module 12. Module 13 will be covering the recovery services. So when you have your data in on-prem or when you have your virtual machine on-prem, so how do you protect them using the Azure recovery services? So we'll be covering this Azure recovery services, monitoring and troubleshooting. So yeah, any questions or doubts so far? Hope you can hear me right. Okay. So next we'll move to the one more slide. So what are the learning path in Microsoft Azure? So you might have been seen like there are multiple certifications available in Microsoft Azure. So what are the learning path we'll try to understand. So you might have been heard about AZ900, right? So AZ900 is Azure Fundamentals 1, which talks about the fundamentals of cloud computing and Azure and what are the Azure services. And there are two main tracks. One is Azure Administration and other one is the developing solution for Microsoft Azure. So if you're looking your career in as a administration, right? AZ104 is the right course. Earlier it was called AZ103. And that is what wherein we'll be covering in this entire training, AZ104. If at all, if you're looking for development, right? So you're from development background or if you're interested in developing solution, then you can choose AZ204. Okay, in order to do this 104 or 204, AZ900 is not a mandatory certification. It's a optional certification, in the sense if you want to learn, you can learn separately, and if you want to get certified, you can get certified, otherwise not required. But again, in our AZ104, we will be covering this as well. You need not to worry. Okay, so if you are looking in the administration part, AZ104 is the right track for you to learn. Plus, if you are interested later to become an Azure DevOps, in that case, AZ104 plus AZ400. In that scenario, you will be completing the Azure DevOps Engineer Expert. So this is one way. Otherwise, if you do 204 plus AZ400, then also you can achieve the Azure DevOps Engineer Expert. So these are two ways where you can achieve this certification. If you're looking for architect, so AZ104 plus AZ305. So once you complete this AZ305, then you'll be achieving the Azure Solution Architect Expert. So earlier there was a long track, so this is not there now. You can directly do after 104. If you are looking for core level networking, then you can learn AZ700. Either you can learn 104 plus 700, otherwise you can learn 700 itself. Okay, but if you are looking to understand the administration, then the core networking, then you can go for 104 plus 700. If you're looking for Azure security, AZ500 is the course content. You can directly take 500, or even after completing 104, you can learn 500 as well. Okay, so these are the learning tracks available for Microsoft Azure. Any questions, any doubts on this?
No.
All right. So with this, you understood like what are the learning tracks. After learning admin, what is the next tracks available, or what are the next available option? Let's move to the next slide. So what are the prerequisites? You might have a question. Okay, if I want to learn Azure admin, so what should I know before? Or is it the uh, do I need to have coding knowledge, right? Or what are the things I should know before? We'll try to understand. So if you want to start your career as a cloud admin, AZ104 is the starting course where you can learn, and later on you can plan it up accordingly. But if you are a fresher or you have experience in IT industry on admin part, or you have a experience in IT industry with a different domain, or if you have a experience with non-IT, AC104 is the right track. But again, you should be having some prerequisite. So you should be having knowledge of Windows and Linux operating system management, wherein we'll be spinning up Windows and Linux machine. So we don't require expertise, but if you know how to connect, how to manage some basics, that's good. If you don't know, you can start learning on it. If you know, and if you want to learn more on expertise level, yes, you can do it. But here, Azure admin, wherein you'll be managing the infrastructure, not on the core OS level, will be administrating here. And also you should be knowing about the virtualization. What is virtualization? Virtualization concept. Whatever you host in a Azure is a virtualized environment. So that you should be knowing the background about that. Next thing you should be knowing about the cloud infrastructure that we'll be learning, and also some basic about the storage. So that will help you. And also you should be knowing about the networking as well. So the basics of networking, what is IP address, types of IP address, class of IP address, and what is subnetting, what are the network devices like routers, switches, load balancer, firewalls, what it does, the basics about that. So here we need not to worry much on the virtualization or on the networking because we don't manage any hardware here. So anything we configure, we call it as a software defined data center. So that is the reason I mentioned you. There is no expertise knowledge required. And even as a fresher also, you can start up as a cloud admin. But if at all if you know, well and good. If you're interested to learn, you can learn. That's fine. So you should be understanding about the virtualization. And you should know some protocols like TCP/IP, what is DNS, what is VPN, what is firewall encryption, what is the use of it, and how it will work as an overview, so that you can implement this solution or you can understand the concept in the cloud. And also, you should be knowing about what is LDAP, AD, and what is resiliency, what is disaster recovery, what is backup and restore, right? So all those things you should be knowing. These are the prerequisites. So if you know, well and good. Otherwise, you can start learning along with this course. If you need any documentation, I can share the links accordingly to that topic. Yeah. Any questions on the prerequisite part? Okay. So now you might have a question, right? So what will be the next after completing this course? What will be the day-to-day job, or what will be the cloud admin role? What we will be playing as in a real time? As a cloud administrator, you'll be managing the cloud services like storage, network, and compute. Okay. And also the entire IT lifecycle model we will be dealing with, like deploying the services, testing the services, updating and upgrading as and when required. And when you don't require retiring, you'll be decommissioning, right? So entire IT lifecycle model you'll be covering in the cloud. You take the end user request for new cloud application, like what will happen here, you'll be getting a request from the end user like developer or any other service administrator to deploy the services like compute, storage, network. So you'll be taking that request and you'll be deploying the services as per the recommendation, and also you'll be monitoring it, right? So you'll be monitoring the capacity and you'll be fine tuning as and when required, and also sometime you'll be coordinating with the external vendors. Okay. And what are the ways you will manage Azure? You'll be managing in a two-way. One is through the graphical user interface using the Azure portal, and other one is using the PowerShell or a command line. So these are the two ways where you'll be managing your Azure infrastructure. As a successful cloud admin, you'll be managing your VMs running on a cloud and everything running on cloud on a virtualization part, network, storage, and other PaaS related services you'll be managing in the cloud. This is the cloud admin role. Any questions so far? If you have any questions, any doubts, you can put it on the chat. Okay, all right. So this we covered what all we'll be covering. Okay, this about the certification part. That's fine. So now we will be seeing like when you want to host any services in cloud. So how do you host and how the lab will run? We'll try to understand that. So here whatever we do will be 90% practical oriented, right? So we deploy the services in the cloud and we will be seeing it in a real time. So now I'll be showing up like deploying a virtual machine in cloud, which is an example of infrastructure as a services. Okay, so let me log into Azure portal. So this is the Azure portal. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Okay, all right. So now we will be seeing one demonstration lab. How do you deploy a compute workload in the cloud? Okay. So this is the Azure portal, the same thing what you see in your real time. So this also is similar. There is no this is not a stimulation. Okay. So let me create one resource group. I'll call this as a test lab. Okay. So now here we are seeing by deploying a compute workload, which is a virtual machine. Search here for a VM. You can see virtual machine console. Go to the virtual machine console. So now I have a requirement where I got a request to deploy a Windows Server 2016 with the 2 CPU, 8 GB RAM, some amount of hard disk. I want this VM to be deployed in west part of US. So let's see how do we deploy this workload and how do we connect. So with this you can understand so how the practical will work, and also when you deploy some workload, how do you access it? Okay, so let me create a virtual machine here. Create a new virtual machine. So this I'll say this is my test app server. Okay, so there are many other properties wherein we'll be choosing as per the requirement. So we will be covering each properties when we go to the compute lab. So for now, I'll be deploying a VM with the default settings with whatever the hardware specification we want, we'll be choosing it. And once it is deployed, then we will see how do we connect. So which region? West US. Windows Server 2016. Okay, it's not available here. Okay. Okay, let's deploy in East US itself. There's no capacity in West US. Okay, so I'm selecting Windows Server 2016, 2 CPU, 8 GB RAM. I'll create a local user account to log into the server. Okay, so there are many other properties. I'll be going with the default settings, disk, network, and other management stuff. So for now, we'll go with the default setting. Later, we'll see customizing this. Okay, let's create this. So if you observe here, we are deploying a VM, right? So without touching the hardware or hypervisor or whatever. So we put our requirement here and the services will be deployed. Simple that. Same way, this is what wherein you'll be doing in a real time. Okay. So that is the reason I said. So as a fresh year also you can start here as a Azure admin. But again, if you know what is virtualization and all, So you'll understand on a backend how the infrastructure will be there. Otherwise, that's fine. If you want to learn more about virtualization, yes, you can learn. Otherwise, that's fine. So now you can see the services are deploying. So this is one way where you can deploy using the graphical user interface. Okay, you can see the virtual machines running. So now when you run a virtual machine in your premises, right, either Windows or Linux, how do you connect and how do you manage is the same way you do it here as well. No difference. If it's a Windows machine, we'll take RDP. If it's a Linux machine, we will be taking SSH. Same way you'll be connecting it. So this is a Windows machine. So now this is the public IP. So this will be covering more in our upcoming classes. So now let me connect to this machine using this public IP. So how do you connect a Windows machine using a remote desktop application? Same way you can do it here as well. So I have a remote desktop application here. Okay, it's loading. Okay, so same way put your IP address and you can connect to it. Okay, now you can see we have connected to this. Already the username and password is saved in the application. So that's why I didn't ask. So this is a Windows server which is running in the east part of US in Microsoft data center. So anything from here we will take care. So we'll be seeing what is IaaS platform as a service and SaaS later part. So this is an example of IaaS. So from here, if you want to install any application, right? So everything will be created and managed and controlled by you. All right. Yeah. So this is our training runs. So we'll discuss the services and theory part, and we will be seeing how to deploy the services. And there are some thing wherein we'll be seeing in a real time, like your load balancing solution and horizontal scaling, Active Directory integration, and backup, restore, right? So there are many other real-time scenario we'll be seeing like VPN and also uh, VNet peering, right? So all those things wherein we'll be seeing in a real-time scenarios and also real-time labs. Yeah. Any questions, any doubts so far? Yeah. If you have any doubt, any questions, we can discuss now. Okay. All right then. So if you don't have any questions, we hold on here. And if at all, if you have any doubt, any questions, you can reach our coordinator so she can help you out with that, or we can connect back. Okay. All right. So if you don't have any questions, can we wind up? Okay. All right then. Thank you guys. Thanks for your time. Have a great day. So we'll connect back then. See you.